Hey, welcome to Project U. Our whole philosophy here is pretty simple. Small steps, big change. And today, we are tackling the biggest obstacle any of us will ever face, which, you probably guessed it, is ourselves.
So, let me ask you something. You ever feel like you're your own worst enemy? Like, you're right there, on the edge of something great, and then, boom, you trip yourself up at the finish line. Or maybe you're just stuck in the same old loop, and you just can't figure out why you keep getting in your own way. If any of that sounds familiar, trust me, you are in exactly the right place.
Okay, let's just dive right in with this really powerful idea from author Brianna Wiest. She says, your new life is going to cost you your old one. Think about that. Real change, it isn't just about adding a few new habits. It's about letting go. Letting go of the old you, the old comfort zones, the old patterns, all the stuff that's holding you back. It's a trade-off for sure, but it might just be the most important one you'll ever make.
And that idea, it leads us right to the core of what we're talking about today. You know, we all talk about having mountains to climb, right? These big challenges in our lives. But what if the biggest, steepest, most terrifying mountain isn't out there somewhere? What if the mountain is you? Yeah, let's dig into this thing called self-sabotage.
Okay, this next part is a total game changer, so listen up. We usually beat ourselves up over self-sabotage, right? We think it's a weakness, a flaw, a lack of willpower. But what if it's not a failure at all? What if it's actually a coping mechanism? That means the behavior, the procrastination, the overspending, whatever it is, that's not the real problem. It's just a symptom. It's your brain's weird, misguided attempt to get some deep, unmet need fulfilled.
So you might be thinking, okay, but if these behaviors are so bad for me, why on earth do I keep doing them? Well, to get that, we need to talk about why we stay stuck. I want you to think about it like this. The comfort of base camp. Yeah, the summit is where the amazing view is, where everything you want is. But base camp, base camp is warm, it's familiar, it's safe.
And this is where the real battle is fought. See, consciously we think we want happiness, we think we want success, but our brains, deep down, are wired for something else entirely. Comfort, familiarity. We cling to what we know, even if what we know kind of sucks. That painful pattern you're stuck in? Yeah, it hurts. But it's a familiar hurt. And to our survival brain, the scary, unknown feeling of trying something new can feel way more dangerous.
This quote really hits the nail on the head. So what are we really running from? Most of the time, it's not actually failure itself, it's the feeling of failure. You know what I'm talking about? That cringy feeling of shame, the anxiety, the embarrassment. So we sabotage ourselves. We do it to protect ourselves from those awful feelings. We'd rather stay in this low-grade, familiar state of meh than risk the sharp, intense pain of trying and falling flat on our face.
And you can see how this creates just a brutal, vicious cycle, right? Fearing those feelings, it just eats away at your self-esteem. It turns up the volume on that negative voice in your head. It completely drains your motivation. And then we do this wild thing that psychologists call self-handicapping. It's where we actually create our own obstacles. You know, like not studying for a test. That way, if we fail, we have a built-in excuse. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it all comes back to just trying to avoid feeling bad.
All right, so that's the why. That's the heavy stuff. Enough about the problem. Let's talk about the solution. It is time to pack our gear for the climb. Let's figure out how we actually start heading up our own personal mountain. This is where things get really practical and, honestly, really hopeful. So, first things first. Before you do anything else, you have to make this one crucial mental shift. Stop treating the coping mechanism as the problem. That procrastination, that doom scrolling, whatever your thing is, that's not the real enemy. If you just try to fight the behavior with willpower, you're gonna lose. Instead, you have to get curious. You have to ask a much better question. What emotional need is this behavior trying to meet for me? Once you figure that out, then you can find a healthier, better way to meet that need.
Okay, so what does this actually look like day to day? We're gonna break it down into 3 essential pieces of climbing gear. Just 3 tools. Number 1, validate your feelings. Number 2, practice safe failure. And number 3, define your values so you know what you're even climbing for.
Let's talk about that first one, emotional validation. I know, it sounds kind of clinical, but it's actually super simple. It just means letting yourself feel what you're feeling, without judgment. No more telling yourself you shouldn't feel anxious or sad. Instead, you just say, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now. And that's okay. When you do that, you're literally retraining your brain. You're teaching it that these feelings aren't dangerous threats you need to run from. They're just signals. They're just information. All right, tool number 2. This one's going to sound a little weird. You need to practice failing. Seriously, to get over the fear of feeling like a failure, you have to build up your emotional muscles, your resilience. And the best way to do that? Deliberately put yourself in situations where you are absolutely guaranteed to not be perfect.
Yeah, I'm being completely serious. Go sign up for a knitting class. Or try pottery. Learn the ukulele. Pick something you are a total beginner at and give yourself permission to be terrible at it. This is so important because this low-stakes practice teaches your nervous system, hey, I can make a mistake, I can feel a little awkward, and I will survive. It's basically emotional weightlifting.
And finally, our third tool. So much of self-sabotage is about running away from fear, right? But that's not enough. You also need something to run toward. That's where your values come in. When you get really clear on what matters most to you, things like creativity or connection or courage, you give yourself a destination. It completely shifts your motivation. You're no longer just avoiding fear. You're pursuing a purpose. Your values basically become your compass for the climb.
Okay, so you've got your gear, you've got your tools, but let's look at the bigger picture here. Climbing this mountain, it's not about getting to the top one time and planting a flag. This is about creating a whole new way of living, a new way of being that stays with you long after you've reached any single summit.
The real goal here, the ultimate prize, isn't just success. It's something much deeper, self-mastery. And I love how Brianna Wiest puts it. It's not about having a perfect, problem-free life. It's about developing this deep internal knowing, this unshakable feeling that at your core, everything is okay and always will be. It's knowing that no matter what storms are raging on the outside, your inner world is steady. So what does that actually look like in your real life? Well, it's that inner peace we were just talking about. It's that emotional resilience you built by, being bad at knitting. It's when you start making choices based on your values, on your purpose, instead of your fears. Ultimately, it's choosing what's best for you in the long run, long-term thriving over what feels easy and safe right now, short-term survival. It's choosing the climb every single time over staying at base camp.
So this all comes down to one final, really important question. This mountain is yours. Nobody else can climb it for you. So after everything we've talked about today, what is the first small step, and I mean small, totally manageable, that you can take up your mountain? What can you do today?
And just remember, it's not about some giant, heroic leap to the summit overnight. That's not how it works. The real power, the real magic is in those small, consistent steps. That's what leads to big, real, lasting change.
Hey, if this was helpful for you, if it gave you something to think about, do us a favor and hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe to Project U for more stuff just like this, designed to help you on your journey.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. And as always, remember, small steps, big change.